every single turn, their goal is to enshrine anti-trans discrimination in the law, because what they're doing is using trans people as a road test in order to try to figure out how to disenfranchise and marginalize and strip citizenship away from millions of Americans who disagree with them.
So what are you doing about this?
So I think that what we do is tell people what's happening. I think that what we do is to underscore for people that this is not, again, it's not a cultural war. It is a political project that has broad implications for the rest of the country.
And finally, Ari Berman, they're saying driver's licenses are not enough. As many as 69 million people who've taken their spouse's name don't have a birth certificate matching their legal name. More than 140 million U.S. citizens don't possess a passport, which, by the way, costs something like $165 to apply for one. We have just 30 seconds.
Well, the SAVE Act is a modern-day poll tax in so many different ways. They're trying to make it seem like it's requiring documentation that everyone has. It's requiring documentation that people don't have, that's expensive to get, that people don't carry around with them every single day. So this is not a voter ID bill. This is a show your papers bill. It would have far-reaching ramifications. Many more people would be affected by this than Republicans suggest. And it's just crazy that this is the thing that Republicans are focusing on when there's so many other problems in the world. It's doomed to failure, but the worry is that when it fails, Trump is going to take more extreme action to try to interfere with the midterms. This is just the beginning of a much bigger fight over the president's desire to interfere in the midterm elections.
Ari Berman, I want to thank you for being with us. National voting rights correspondent for Mother Jones Magazine. We'll link to your article, The World's on Fire, Gas Prices Are Rising, Republicans Are Trying to Make It Harder to Vote. And Amara Jones, founder and CEO of Translash Media and host of its investigative podcast, The Anti-Trans Hate Machine. Again, next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, live stream at democracynow.org, our 30th anniversary celebration at Riverside Church here in New York with Patti Smith and Michael Stipe and Angela Davis and others. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.
Support comes from the Alex Theater, presenting the Ravi Shankar Ensemble on March 31st at 8 p.m. Curated by Anushka and Sukanya Shankar, this debut U.S. tour celebrates the legendary Ravi Shankar's music with rare archival visuals and live performance featuring sitar, tabla, and traditional Indian classical instruments. This will be a very special evening honoring Ravi Shankar's enduring legacy. More information and tickets available at itsmyseat.com and kpfk.org.
Yo, this is your brother Speech from the crew Arrested Development. You rocking with KPFK 90.7 Los Angeles.
Woo-wee, here we go. This is Cut to the Chase. It's Friday, 8 a.m. My name is Sylvestor Rivers, or you can call me Sly Rivers, or you can call me Sly. And, you know, that doesn't deal with character. It's just like, you know, Robert is Bob, William is Bill. So Sly is short for Sylvester. And so that's, you know, how it is. But, you know, there's a saying, the fool is not the one who calls you out of name. The fool is the one who answers. So, yeah, I will answer to Sylvester or Sly or Sly Rivers. Great show today. We have some people who our audience and my listeners said, please bring them back because they were on before this war started out. Our panelists, we're going to have two, Jackie Lukeman. She's the vice chair of the coordinating committee of the Black Alliance for Peace. And Dennis Fritz will be joining us shortly. He's a former Air Force Command Chief, Master Sergeant, and author of The Deadly Betrayal, The Truth About Why the United States Invaded Iraq. So we're going to have those two panelists on today. And the topic is going to be a black perspective on the war, or should I say wars. So that's what the topic is going to be, and we're going to get into it. But before we get into, we have Jackie waiting, but before we get to, I want to play a clip. It's a short clip to set this up. Black perspective on the war. But let's listen to this clip I found dealing with us. This is clip number 1.
I've been studying surveillance data for months, and there's one statistic that haunts me. Black Americans are 14% of the population, but represent over 40% of FBI domestic surveillance targets. What are they so terrified of that they've dedicated a century of resources to watching us? Listen, y'all, this is the question that keeps me up at night, because when you really dig into the numbers, when you follow the money, when you trace the timeline, it becomes crystal clear that this system has been absolutely terrified of Black Americans since day one. And I'm not talking about some paranoid conspiracy theory nonsense. I'm talking about documented, declassified, government-admitted surveillance programs that have been running for over 100 years. Let me break this down for you, because the math alone should make every American furious. We're 14% of the population. 14%, that's like one person out of every 7. But somehow, someway, we require more surveillance resources than groups that outnumber us 4-1. The budget allocations, the technology, the manpower dedicated to monitoring Black communities rivals what some countries spend on their entire defense systems. You want to tell me that makes sense? Here's what really gets me fired up. They've been doing this so long, they've got it down to a science. It started with Marcus Garvey in the 1920s. This man was preaching Black pride, economic independence, self-determination, basic human dignity, and the government said, oh, hell no, and created an entire apparatus just to take him down. J. Edgar Hoover, that racist dinosaur, literally built his career on the fear of Black organizing. He said Garvey was the most prominent and dangerous Black leader in America. Dangerous for what? For telling Black people they deserved better? But let's go even further back, because this pattern starts before Garvey. During Reconstruction, they had the Freedmen's Bureau monitoring every move Black folks made. They were tracking who was learning to read, who was buying land.
And we're listening behind us. She's talking about the war that the United States has on Black folks. Of course, there was and of course, we ourselves are divided. Booker T. Washington didn't like what W.B. Du Bois didn't like what Booker T. Washington was doing, or Marcus Garvey. So there was all this confusion, which there still is. Of course, the US organization killed 2 Black Panthers at UCLA because of COINTELPRO and all these other ridiculous things that the FBI was doing. So it's going on today. Right today, individuals, organizations are fighting each other and thinking that theirs is the only way. Mine's the only way. You have to listen to me. But, just because one's right doesn't mean the other's wrong. Just because one's wrong doesn't mean the other's right. And then Dennis Fritz is with us. I'll be with y'all in just a second. In Iran, they have the decapitation tactic. So is this new? No, the U.S. has been decapitating us a long time. Don't forget Fred Hampton, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. So this, and all the hundreds and maybe thousands of Black Panthers and activists who have been incarcerated for years. So this decapitation is not new. They've been doing it, but before they just did it and they didn't announce it. We're going to kill him. They just killed Fred Hampton in his bed. So decapitation. So that's nothing new, nothing new at all. So before we get to our panel, I want to play one more clip, and then we'll get to our subject, a Black perspective on the wars. This is clip number 3.
It's not just cultural influence they're worried about. It's political power. Every time Black voter turnout increases, every time we organize politically, every time we flex our electoral muscle, here comes the surveillance, here come the voter suppression tactics, here come the attempts to divide and conquer. Look at what happened in 2008 when Black voter turnout helped elect Barack Obama. Suddenly, there was a massive increase in domestic surveillance, in monitoring of Black political organizations, in tracking social media activity. They couldn't stop the election, but they sure could monitor everyone who made it possible. The real question isn't why they monitor us. The real question is, what happens when we stop being afraid of their monitoring and start using our power anyway? What happens when we realize that their fear of us is actually confirmation of our strength? See, here's what they don't want you to understand. Surveillance is an admission of weakness, not strength. You don't spend billions of dollars monitoring people you're not worried about. You don't dedicate entire government agencies to watching people who can't hurt you. The fact that they've maintained this level of surveillance for over a century, tells you everything you need to know about who really has the power in this relationship. Every algorithm designed to track us, every database built to monitor us, every technology deployed to control us is a testament to our potential. They see something in Black Americans that we sometimes don't even see in ourselves. They see the power to change everything, to challenge every assumption, to demand justice not just for ourselves, but for everyone. The surveillance state exists because they know that when Black Americans organize, when we unite, when we focus our collective energy on change, we don't just ask for reforms, we transform entire systems. And that transformation threatens every power structure they've built their wealth and control on. Think about it. Every major advancement in American democracy has come through Black struggle. The end of slavery, civil rights, voting rights, workers' rights, women's rights. We've been the catalyst for every expansion of freedom and democracy in this country. And every single time, they've responded with surveillance, intimidation, and violence. And let me tell you something else that's going to blow your mind. The international scope of this surveillance. They weren't just monitoring Black Americans domestically, they were tracking our connections globally. When civil rights leaders traveled to Africa, Asia, or Europe, the CIA was right there documenting every meeting, every conversation, every relationship. They were terrified that Black Americans would connect with other liberation movements around the world, that we'd realize our struggle was part of a global fight against white supremacy and colonialism. Malcolm X's trips to Africa and the Middle East, monitored. Martin Luther King's connections with anti-apartheid leaders, documented. Paul Robeson's international performances and political speeches. The State Department revoked his passport for 8 years just to keep him from spreading ideas about racial equality internationally. They understood something that many Black Americans are just now waking up to. Our struggle for freedom in America is connected to liberation movements everywhere. This is why they freaked out when the Black Panthers started building relationships with revolutionaries in Cuba, Algeria, Vietnam, and China. Suddenly, it wasn't just about civil rights in America anymore. It was about Black Americans understanding their place in a global context of resistance to oppression.
Whoa, did you hear that? So, and just I know our panel is waiting. They're foaming at the mouth to start talking because this is a. But before I say that, the war in Iran. For those of you who remember, in 1979, the Iranians kicked out the United States and they kicked out the Shah of Iran, and so they had hostages. That is, the Iranians had hostages, American hostages. And what did they do? They let the Black hostages go. All except one who was this, I guess, CIA agent trying to burn files. So they let the Black hostages go. A lot of, you don't hear that anywhere else. You know, you just hear about, they had hostages, and you hear about the deal that Reagan made. Then you have to look at Vietnam. I argue that the reason the United States lost the war in Vietnam was because many of the Black troops stopped fighting because they realized they were being used. Dennis Fritz and Jacqueline Lukeman are down to talk about the Black perspective on the war. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And by the way, people loved your last interviews here. And it was pre-war, so they said, you have to have them back now that the war started. So, Jackie, let's start with you. A Black perspective on the war.
Well, thanks so much for having me back again. I love being on your show. I love talking to you, and I love just being able to have these conversations, even though these conversations are always hard and very, very depressing. One thing that people, I guess, don't realize or probably don't think about, organizers are human beings too. We have feelings and emotions. And this is hard. It's never, at least for me, I'm an organizer, and it's not like I'm excited about having to do any of this work. I don't want to do this work, but we have to because the system is unfair, we're oppressed, and we see that, the global implications of Reconstruction in this country never having been adjudicated properly. We see where that's gotten us, because I do believe that that's a part of why this war is happening. Because in this country, in this settler colony, the end of the era of enslavement was not met with accountability for the people who carried it out. And there was reconciliation between white Southerners and white Northerners rather than any type of Nuremberg type level accountability for the perpetrators of the crimes of enslavement. And not even that's not even considering the crime of secession from the Union, but just the crimes committed against human beings for 288 years of enslavement, and then the genocide of indigenous people and the enslavement of indigenous people before that. That was never adjudicated. So when you don't punish genocidaires in one context, they are emboldened to continue the project. And that's what has happened in this country. That is what Western civilization, this thing about Western civilization, that the white Christo fascists who are running this country are basing all of these ideas on. They were never held accountable for the scramble for Africa. They were never held accountable for the scramble for Asia. They carved up other countries. They colonized. They neo-colonized. They committed genocides. They starved hundreds of thousands of people to death. The capitalist, imperialist Western civilization project has slaughtered 50 to 60 million people since just the 1990s. We're just talking about a segment of the Cold War. That is the human cost of not holding genocidaires to account, not holding colonizers and settler colonists, colonialists, and imperialists to account. They just continue to perfect their plans and find allies or create allies, create proxy states, client states, vassal states to spread their ideology through war. This is what we are looking at. The war on Iran is not a new separate thing. It is the natural outcome, the logical outcome of a system of white supremacy, settler colonialism, pan-European, Western civilization-based hegemony unleashed. That has been the capitalist order in the Western Hemisphere since 1492. So that's what we're looking at here. And of course, from the perspective of an African, of course, this is deeply connected to us because we are right in the middle of this stream of pan-European white supremacist settler colonial history. This affects all of us, whether we want to admit it or not.
Wow. So you said, was it 50 million people that they massacred or slaughtered? No, were most of these people of the melanated hue?
Most are. Most have been, not all, because remember, there were imperialist wars and proxy wars carried out in European countries that surround Russia in an attempt to destroy Russia since the Cold War. So there was a civil war in Yugoslavia. There was all of that going on. So it's not just African or brown people, but primarily, yes, the majority of those people have been African, brown, Asian people, an incredibly disproportionate percentage of Muslims. So there is a white supremacist, white Christian nationalist aspect to this global militarism. But yes, I mean, capitalist imperialist hegemony has slaughtered millions of people around the world. And if we look at global conflict and US foreign policy from that perspective, as opposed to saying, oh, well, what the US does in these countries doesn't affect me. No, you can't ignore 50, 60 million people. It's easy to ignore, to look at what's going on in Iran and saying, well, they're a bunch of religious extremists. But when you pan out and you realize that the war on Iran is connected to the aggression against Cuba, is connected to the kidnapping of Maduro and Celia in Venezuela, is connected to the ongoing control and denial of sovereignty of Haiti, is connected to the surveillance of our people here in the United States. You can't ignore the millions of people who have been sacrificed at the altar of so-called Western civilization, which is a code word for white civilization, pan-European domination, and capitalist imperialist hegemony.
Wow. So I hear these so-called people saying we're there to export American values. After I throw up, I then come back American values. That's Jackie Lukeman, who's the vice chair of the coordinating committee of the Black Alliance for Peace. We also have with us Dennis Fritz. Somebody said, could you have Dennis Fritz come on? Because he hasn't been on since the war started. So with us also is a former Air Force Command Chief Master Sergeant and author of Deadly Betrayal, The Truth About Why the United States Invaded Iraq. And so both of you were well received on this program, and they just, okay, so that's why I asked you to be on this panel. Dennis, Black perspective on the war, or wars, if you will.
Well, first of all, Sylvester, thanks for having me back. And like Jackie, I was trying to write a bunch of notes because she left a lot for me to comment on, but now I'm writing so fast and trying to look at her, I can't read my writing. So I'm just trying to go from there.
Well,
Let me just say,
thank you.
okay, but like Jackie, I was thrust into this. I wish I could be just sitting back, minding my own business and playing golf as I, adapted now. But I can't because I was thrust into this, and it's too important for me just not to sit back and say nothing. I'm not an activist, but I try to give activists street cred. I'm a person that's been on the inside of our foreign policy. And when I saw the imperialistic, pawn-using, imperialistic narrative that we had, I had to talk about it. Let me just mention a couple of things where I can read my notes and remember. You mentioned a couple of names, Malcolm X. Let me just say Malcolm X, when Jackie was saying, some people say, hey, it's not tied in all together. It doesn't impact me. Malcolm X was one of the first ones that was talking about the Palestinian plight. He talked about that from years ago. Okay. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, these names that we know that impacted our history for the good. But this title or whatever, I say this fictitious name that the Western colonialism like to use, terrorists, as we use in the Middle East. They labeled Mandela as a terrorist, fighting for his own country, fighting for his own land. So think about that for a moment. When you talk about these wars, Muhammad Ali, he said, those Viet Cong, I'm just trying to paraphrase, has done nothing to me. Why should I go over there and fight for them? They have not put my ancestors into slavery. They have not called me the N-word, And so take a look at that. And then finally, I talked about a couple of things. You mentioned, I think it was you, Sylvester, when you talk about the Iranians, the 1979, when they took back their country, if you will. Well, this goes back to 1953, when we, the United States of America, along with Britain, went in there and overthrew their democratic elected government for their own, to control their own. Think about that for a moment. I wrote about something else too, when we talk about how it's tied all in together, when Jackie mentioned about the genocide. The genocide in Gaza. We are complicit in that. I'm talking about our government because we funded the killing of those innocent women and children. Now let's talk about the Middle East, for example, and these wars, and we can get more and more into it. But these wars, it's another form of colonialization. And I would be quite frank with you. The so-called Jewish people, the majority of them that's over there right now, they're Ashkenazi Jews. They converted to that religion. They stole that religion. They went in there and took the land from the Palestinians. We are complicit in that. And in our government, don't get fooled by I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, and so forth. Both parties are complicit. Joe Biden, who I regrettably is a person who I voted for, he claimed to fame, I'm a Zionist. If there was no Israel, we would have had to create one. Think about that, us Black Americans that's killing brown people over there, that our government, both Republicans and Democrats, supported. Don't be fooled because it's tied all together, and we are impacted by that. Let me just share one other thing from the inside, then we'll get going and let you ask some questions there of us, and that is generate a lot of conversation. Because you can see I'm mad right now because this war has started over my shoulder, deadly betrayal. We're just now into another deadly betrayal by our country. Now, when you talk about the war and what's happening right now, I predicted this. It ties back into, think about this right now. We spent in the first 6 days $11 billion on a war to kill people, and now they're asking for another $200 billion over the $1.5 trillion that they asked for. I'm talking about the government of our government asked for to go and fight wars and kill people. Now, how does that tie into us? Oh, we don't have enough money for health care for us over here. Oh, we don't have enough money to subsidize our education, to hold us down, to keep us from getting the education that we deserve, to make us and our country better. But we have all the money to go over and kill people and take their resources. And the last thing I'll leave you with, Israel and our United States of America have a right to defend themselves. Do those countries that are labeled so-called terrorists, do they have a right to defend themselves and their resources? Give me a break.
That's Dennis Fritz, y'all. And we also have Jackie Lukeman. And so I'm looking at this as a white nationalist. You know, they're looking at, you have Israel, like you said, the Ashkenazi Jews, who just, in Israel, they discriminate against the other Jews, because I don't like saying
absolutely.
Jew. You know, it's
treated worse than we are over here. The Black Jews treated worse than we are over here.
Right, right. So, so it's a war of expansionism, imperialism, and white nationalism, because I know people in Israel, some of the Hebrew Israelites, who said no, they discriminated against us, and I know also some of the Ethiopian Jews, they discriminate against them. But what they do is be sure they get signed up to go to the army. So, do you want to comment on the white nationalism, either one of you, before we move forward? As far as this war, I see it as two things: expansionism, imperialism, you know, trying to take down everybody who's in the way, and white nationalism. Am I far off?
No.
Jackie, you go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Dennis. I really appreciate your comments. I love your book. Yes, I have read it. It is really great. And you need to read that book. You really do. To understand how slick these people are with the lies about why they do these things. Everything you are hearing about Iran on corporate media news right now, it's lies, y'all. I'm trying to tell you it's all lies. Everything they tell you about, oh, Iran is run by a bunch of religious psychopaths and they're just beheading people all over the place. And women in Iran are fine. They are actually the most educated group of people in the country. Women in Iran. STEM fields in Iran, 60% populated by women. Women are the most educated people in the region, just about, in Iran. More masters and advanced degrees among women wearing the hijab in Iran than women in this country. Do you understand me? And this thing about women have no rights in Iran, this is not true. It is absolutely not true. We do not know anything about other countries. We only know the lies this government tells us about other countries. And the same is true for Cuba, Venezuela, every other country, all that kind of stuff. But when you mention white nationalism, that's basically when they say they are bringing back Western civilization, they are defending Western, that's what they mean. because this idea of Western civilization comes from the Greco-Roman era, rather, where they believe this is the foundation for all of the enlightenment in the Western world. That civilization came from the ideas of Greco-Roman empire and society. And one of the main ideas that they use to justify their occupation and their subjugation of people they don't like is Aristotle's idea, the philosopher Aristotle. His idea of something called natural slaves, where Aristotle believed that Greeks, and not even all Greeks, but special Greeks, the smartest ones, were more intelligent, they were more human than other people. So people who were not a part of this special category of Greek people were inferior to those folks. And Aristotle believed that those inferior people were naturally made to be enslaved by Greeks who were the pinnacle of civilization. Now, that wasn't a racial thing because race didn't exist at that time, but it was absolutely a superiority ideology, one group of people being better than everybody else. And that group of people who are special and select have to both take care of everybody else, but also have the right to use them for their benefit because that is the only thing those people are good for, right? So that is the ideology that this pan-European Western civilization dominance is founded on. So you have that already supremacist ideology, this natural hierarchy of humanity that comes out of Greco-Roman philosophy that is supposed to be the cornerstone of all civilization. And then you slide in the concept of race that the same group of people came up with. And you have this now established Western civilization based world order that this empire is now trying to not just hold on to, but trying to expand. Yes, this empire is collapsing. It is lashing out. It is trying to hold on to the power that is being chipped away at, not just domestically, but around the world. And we're just not chipping away at it fast enough on the inside. But yes, this empire is lashing out, but they're also trying in that lashing out to spread this evil ideology beyond the boundaries where it was implemented at first in Africa, in the carving up of Africa and the colonization of Africa, in Asia, in the colonization of Asia. We're seeing, I think we're actually seeing like what the scramble for Africa looked like. We're seeing what settler colonialism looked like. We are seeing how the US was settled and established without having been there in that history because all they're doing is repeating how they have conquered what they've already conquered that they're trying to hold on to now.
Wow,
So
that's
we're literally watching the history of how we got here.
exactly. Wow, I was thinking that. Whew, that's deep. Fritz, you had something to say.
Yeah, please. Just to comment on something that Jackie said a few minutes ago. She, concentrated her efforts, which is okay, as being a proud Black woman. But she talked about the women. Let me just say something else. Iran, and I like when she say Iran, because correction on that a lot by some of the Iranians. Iran versus Iran. Iran. Uh, Not only the women, but as a whole, it is one of the most educated and literate countries in the world. Let me just say that in the world. Okay. The next thing I will tell you, this may be surprising to some, but this is a fact. White nationalists. It is big in our United States military and is currently led by one of the top in Hexel. in our military right now. Not an opinion, not an assumption, but fact. And with my organization, the Eisenhower Media Network, we have a couple folks that are following that. And I have a conference coming up next month where we're going to have an individual that tracks that, which those who are against that are sending out anonymous letters to this organization. And I'll be getting a briefing from them next month. But it's within our military right now, led by Hegseth, the so-called, hear what I said, the so-called Secretary of Defense.
Didn't he get rid of a lot of black generals when he had that meeting?
Well, that's what I'm going to tell you now.
Okay.
When we talk about that, it's well said. Great question to lead into. That's what I was going to think about this from to prove that point as you walk me right into that, Sylvester. Think about this. The first group of general officers and naval admirals that were fired were women and minorities, to include the top general in our military, a black man who I've had opportunity to meet on a number of occasions, General C.Q. Brown, the chairman of our Joint Chiefs of Staff. The Navy was led by a female, gone. The Coast Guard was led by a female, gone. Another 3-star female general that was in the Pentagon, there was an assistant, one of the top assistants in the Pentagon, gone. Not assumption, not opinion, but fact.
So, so you have, of course, I'm not really in with these military folks, but because they're
well, that's why I'm
used.
here. That's why I like to let Jackie go as an activist from the civilian side. And I can tell you, I've been in there deep into the Pentagon since 1979. I got the T-shirt and the scars to show it.
So you're listening to Cut to the Chase. My name is Sly Rivers. We do have callers. Maybe the last 10 minutes we'll take a few. 818-985-5735. Jackie mentioned all the lies. I want to play clip 5, short clip. She mentioned all the lies going on, and they have things to help with these lies. I mean, sometimes I cut on my laptop, I go on YouTube, and I could see that is being manipulated. Fox says the Kurds are going to come in, and I said, this is all a lie. But let's play clip 5, if we may.
Corporate surveillance is part of this too. Tech companies are collecting data on Black Americans and selling it to government agencies and law enforcement. Your shopping patterns, your location data, your social media activity, your search history, it's all being packaged and sold to people who want to track and control Black communities. And when you try to opt out, when you try to protect your privacy, that's treated as suspicious behavior that warrants even more surveillance. The prison system is using surveillance technology to monitor not just incarcerated people, but their families and communities too. Phone calls are recorded, visits are monitored, mail is read, and all of that data is being used to build profiles on people who have never been convicted of any crime. They're treating entire families and neighborhoods as criminal networks based on nothing more than relationships and associations. But here's what they didn't count on. We're getting smarter too. Young Black activists are using encryption, they're building alternative communication networks, they're creating independent media platforms, they're developing economic systems that operate outside traditional banking. Every surveillance...
Okay, was that clip 5? Okay, that was AI. But I'm going to try clip 7, and then we'll continue. We do have one caller, 818-985-5735. Hit option 1 to talk at the end of the show to our 2 guests. But I want to play this clip, clip 7.
But here's what really gets me. They're using surveillance to suppress economic development in Black communities. Small businesses are being monitored for suspicious financial activity. Black-owned banks are subject to extra scrutiny. Community organizations trying to do economic development work are investigated for potential fraud. They're literally using surveillance to maintain economic inequality. And let's talk about environmental surveillance. They're monitoring Black communities for illegal dumping and environmental violations, but they're not monitoring the corporations that are actually poisoning our neighborhoods. They'll spend millions tracking individuals who might be littering, but they won't investigate the chemical companies that are giving kids asthma and cancer. The surveillance state has also weaponized mental health. They're monitoring social media for signs of mental instability, but what they're really doing is criminalizing trauma responses to systemic oppression. If you post about being tired of racism, if you express anger about police violence, if you talk about feeling hopeless about the system, that gets flagged as concerning behavior that might warrant intervention. They're even surveilling our religious practices. Mosques in Black communities are heavily monitored. Churches that preach
So I played that because she started out by saying economic development. And Chairman Omali Ishatali is with the African People's Socialist Party. And a couple of years ago, they indicted him. He talked about the surveillance. They went in with tanks, flash bombs, and all this crap. Because what? He's creating alternatives. So when you create an alternative and don't get by into them, you're a threat. So, thumbs up to the Uhuru movement and the African People's Socialist Party. And you're a threat when you don't buy into their economic game. Fritz, I see you ready. Go ahead.
Hey, let's just go back to something else first, and I want to comment on what you just said there and tell you something personal. First of all, you know how they try to use these terms of terrorists and surveillance and all that. Let me just tell you something. How they label Iran as the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world. Well, another major lie. You ready for this? Fact, not opinion, not assumption. The United States of America is the biggest sponsor of terrorism, followed by Israel. You know who first implemented and executed terrorism in the Middle East? It was the Israeli Zionists against the British because they wanted to take over that land. They blew up what you call the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, which I happened to live in. And I stayed there while I visited there one time. Yeah. And I didn't know what was going on at the time. I mean, we had all kinds of security. I'd never been in a hotel where you had, military, They blew up that hotel and kicked the Brits out. Israel is the one that created terrorism in the Middle East to get the Brits out so they could declare themselves a state in 1948. Keep that in mind. The lies, the lies, the lies. Now, when you talk about surveillance, I am under surveillance. And this is a person that has only had, in my life, I'm 69 years old. I've only had 3 tickets in my life. One was thrown out. Spent 28 years of my life in the military, but because I'm speaking truth. Well, Dennis Fritz, how do you know that? Well, a good friend of mine told me he received a knock on the door. I didn't know what he meant by that, a knock on the door. Hey, got a call by FBI. They're saying, are you a threat to our national security? Well, isn't that something? Isn't that something? While I served my country for 28 years. But you know what? Well, I'm going to be nice on this. I almost said you
Don't
can kiss
be
my
nice.
behind.
No, this is cut to the chase. We're not being nice about him here.
This is perfect today. Cut to the chase because Jackie and I are not messing around. Okay? This is too serious now because, as you said, some of your audience said, I've been warning us about this war if Iran for a year longer, really a decade, but publicly for over 2 years. It's here now. And I'm mad as hell, and we can talk about that later on. But when you talk about surveillance,
in your book. Your book
talks
about,
it's predicted. Yeah. It's predicted.
So
in
what
my
they're trying
book,
to do.
Yeah. And that's why I'm mad because I somewhat say I failed. But let me just talk about something. When we talk about the mainstream media, too, when Jackie alluded to this, too, they lied. They're in cahoots. The Zionists, and I'm being candid, label me as you desire. They bought up all the media to include now lately CBS. And guess what? They fired a bunch of black folks on CBS. Now they're going to have CNN. And guess what? A lot of people became smarter. I am one of those. Became smarter. Are you ready for this? I'm an old man, but I'm a TikTok nut.
What?
Okay? I'm a TikTok nut. Because of the fact so much is exposed on TikTok, that's why they're trying to buy it up. That's how the young folks realized what was going on in Gaza through TikTok. And let me just mention something else. I'm cut to the chase. When we talk about what in the world are we trying to control Africa, you know why? Africa is the doggone richest continent in this entire world. Have more minerals than you could ever imagine. Have more resources than you can ever imagine. And we went in there, because I understand it. I'm part of the United States of America, but we didn't do it. but we know who did it and stole those resources and pit us against one another, even going back to slavery, when some of us pushed us to the shores where they could take us and bring us over here. So that's part of the strategy too, is to pit us against one another. Because now I'm going to get started here. Let me just say this, and I'm going to shut up, give Jackie her opportunity again. I want everybody to hear me loud and clear. I am not a racist person. I don't care if you're black, white, whatever religion. I love it for what's in your heart, as Martin Luther King was saying. I'm using different words, you know. But let me just say this. I am so happy. I should get on my knees and thank the Lord that I'm black. You know why? Because the reason they fear us because they're scared of us because we're so smart. If we use our resources, if we came together, we could just do so much because we're so smart. Everything, some things we invented because we had to make life easier for us. A lot of most of the inventions in the world we did, and they stole it from us. They got the patents and so forth. So we got to keep that in mind as well.
Wow, that's what the lady was saying at the beginning, that most of the surveillance goes on us. Jackie, looks like you're ready to say something.
I can listen to Dennis Fritz for another, but I want to caution us.
Yes.
Because we fall into this trap all the time. Yes, racism is a part of their strategy, but they're not doing this because they hate Black people. They're doing this because they're capitalists. And they will do this to anybody and everybody who gets in the way of their ability to get richer off of somebody else's resources that they want. So, yes, they will use racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia and xenophobia and Islamophobia, ableism, ageism. They will use environmental issues. Now they've turned science into a battleground where people are fighting over what is scientifically sound and what isn't. Capitalists will use whatever tactic they can to divide the people who are in the way of their ability to exploit resources and people. So, yes, they use racism as a tool, as a way to get us out of the way or to trap us into a situation where we are not a threat to them anymore. And this doesn't mean that they want to get rid of all of us, because let's be clear now, capitalists don't want to kill all of humanity, because how are they going to make their money if they get rid of all of the workers? All right. So this is not a racial issue. They're not doing these things to Africa because they hate Africans. Because if that were true, how do you explain their carving up of Asia? How do you explain they're using Ukraine as a proxy to destroy Russia? How do you explain that their threats to go after the Netherlands? This is not. These are the ways they divide people, are the tools they use to neutralize the oppression, not the oppression, the resistance. That's what I was looking for. They use different ways to divide us. So all of the diaspora wars between, Africans here and Africans and the rest of the diaspora, but they also use the gender wars, but among Black people and white folks. Because look at white folks now fighting each other over, toxic masculinity and the trad wife trend and all of this stuff. But they also use religion. Look at the fight that has to happen in the Christian church right now. It has to happen. And I'm trying so hard to start that one. So these are all different ways that they use to pit different groups of people against each other. But I want us to understand that the primary reason they do it, the thing they are upholding and advancing, is capitalism. It's not racism. It's not sexism. It is capitalism. And they're using all of these different ways that we go at each other. And we focus on those things, but we ignore The fact that they're all capitalists and they're all stealing our money from every single one of us and
Oh, they're
telling us
taking our
they
money.
don't have any money to give us what we have a right to.
Right.
Sylvester, I know
Yes.
you want to jump. Let me just say something what she just said. Oh, please. Jackie hit some home runs there. Let me just first say this. I'm going to give you two examples. Oh, go ahead, Jack. I'm going to give you two examples real quick
Well,
that hit home within our
this is also
community.
being broadcast live on kpfk.org. I believe they're live stream because Jackie's. You can see the animation. Go ahead. I just want to say
Okay,
that.
I want you to get your commercial thing in there. Go ahead, yeah. But listen, capitalism, that's what it's all about. You're so spot on. Let me just tell you this. Let's look at right at home for it, and I'm going to go overseas. In the NBA, you think they're going to lose that money from those NBA players? Now, they won't let them be owners, mind you.
That's true.
They want to own the money, but
Yes.
they love how we play the sport, and that's what makes them money. Okay? Second, let's go overseas for a moment, what Jackie just said. I'm going to give you two examples from a foreign policy and military perspective, what Jackie just said. China. Richard Nixon went over to China and opened the doors to introduce them to capitalism. We always say they're the enemy, and we call them, they're a communist country. But Richard Nixon went over and said, you know what we can do? Capitalists, billionaires over here in the United States of America, we can get some cheap labor from those folks over there. So we're going to go over there. And guess what? They became a partner. Then all of a sudden, China said, hey, let's become partial capitalists. It's not bad. This is going to build our country, okay? You know how we used to say America first? Well, China first. Then they became a competitor. Oh, our folks over here, our oligarchs, the capitalists that want to make all the money, they didn't like that. So all of a sudden, they became an adversary. And now guess what they are? Because they got big and powerful, they started building up their military because we wanted to challenge them. So China said, hey, we're going to build up our military. Now they're an enemy because we started intruding on their capitalism. And let me just say one other thing. When she mentioned Ukraine, the Eisenhower Media Network, go back and Google this. We did the United States would be a force for peace. Why? We started that war with Ukraine and Russia because of what Jackie just said a few minutes ago, capitalism. First of all, Russia and China are the biggest exporters of grain in the world. We want to control it in our capitalist world. Oh, by the way, Russia has more oil resources than probably anybody in the world. We always talk about us. We want to bring that into the capitalist society. So guess what? So that our people here can control that. So Jackie is right. It's not really about racism. It's about capitalism and making all the money they can at the expense of everybody else.
There you go. That's Dennis Fritz. And we also have Jacqueline Jackie Lukman on the line. And we're going to take your quick calls, so 30 seconds, because I'm just overwhelmed with y'all's presentation. We have caller on line one, no name. Caller, go ahead. Okay.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, go ahead. You're on the air live, so you have like 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay. The lady called Jackie. I just listened to her a few minutes ago. She's 100% correct about Iran. Women's freedom, women's education. It's a very nice society. It is the Israeli trying to make that country look like a concentration camp of religious nuts. That's not true. Please take a trip to Iran. You will see what a wonderful place it is.
Thank you so much, caller. And, that's the tactic they use when they want to overthrow somebody.
Can I comment on that, Sylvester?
Yes.
And this is in the book, too. And, Jackie, you go back and take a look at this. The control was in the book to take over Iraq first, Syria, and then Iran. We saved Iran last because of the fact we were scared of those ballistic missiles and we knew they were very powerful. Now, how did this tie into this, what the gentleman just said? We knew that it would be hard to defeat them militarily, as what's happening now. So what they decided they were going to do, they were going to cause unrest, riots in the street. What you saw starting in January, that was orchestrated by the CIA here and also by Mossad. They orchestrated that, and some of the killers, there was a lot of law enforcement in Iran that were killed. They were killed by hired paid assassins. Why they wanted to do that? They want to control Iran, and so that unrest was caused by us. Not opinion, not assumption, but fact.
Fact. Deborah's on line, too. Deborah, you have like 30 seconds because we're rolling up in here.
I just wanted to comment with what Jackie said. I went to college with Persians from Iran, the Persians, they were courteous, they were extremely smart and well bred, well educated, extremely respectful of our people and our culture. There were only 10 of Afro-American Americans in my college, but just really a good exposure. And the women were very elitely educated. I just wanted to comment on it. The Land of Kings was a book that they gifted me at graduation, and the Persian plays and the culture and the dinners that they exposed me to were very beautiful.
Right.
Thank you, Jackie, for sharing that.
And they're destroying, I guess, historical monuments in Iran.
Yeah.
5,000-year-old civilization. 5,000 years. There's also an element of jealousy and it's the old crusade trick. That's how I'm looking at this. This to me is looking like the white Christo-fascist, white Christian nationalist modern crusade.
Yes. And what I wanted to say is they always use the tactic of trying to demonize somebody. Like Gaddafi was this crazy man. Fidel Castro was this crazy. And what you said, Fritz, earlier, Mandela was a terrorist. They always do this without... it's a lie, as Jackie said. Our guest...
You got another caller?
Yeah, we do. Jacqueline Lukeman is our guest, and Dennis Fritz, and we do have a caller, Harold from Santa Barbara. Make it quick, because we only have a few minutes left. Harold? We lost Harold. So we got some more callers. We'll try to. I think line 5. What do we got? Anyway, so let's keep rolling. We thank Will. He's working out, and that's our engineer Will. He's answering phones. He's doing everything. So I have to thank Will.
Sylvester, while waiting for another call, let me just mention something. And listen, cut to the chase. I love people, so I tell it like it is, whether it impacts us or not. Listen, that was one of my biggest disappointment with Obama. We all loved him and whatever, but my biggest disappointment, he's the one that took down Gaddafi. Yes. Gaddafi was doing good for his people, okay? Oh, by the way, too, let me just say this. You talk about BRICS. He was trying to develop an African currency. His people, when people first got married, he helped them get homes. If they wanted to come over here abroad to get their education, oh, by the way, he was there for them. Jealousy, corruption, and want to control everything, we took him down.
And I was so disappointed. I tried to go with Obama for the first maybe month. Then he extended the Bush tax cuts. Then he just showed who he was. I mean, he was the worst president for Africa ever.
Well, let me just go back and say that you're right. Well, once again, cross party lines. Our politicians are bought and paid for. As I tell folks, whether you like it or not, we are an occupied country, not militarily, but politically. And all you got to do, I'm going to call this name because I got a lot of blacks looking at this now, and even some of our candidates. Follow the money with AIPAC, if you will. Okay? Yep. Just remember that. Follow the money with AIPAC. We got to get smarter on that.
Yeah. Wow. And I just want to add quickly, when we look at the countries that the U.S. government attacks under every administration, it's always the same countries. Always the same. It's always Cuba. It's always Venezuela. It's always IAT. It's always Iran. They've always been Iran has always been on the list. Remember Wesley Clark? Remember that thing that Wesley Clark said a few years ago? What was it, 2019, 2018? He
7 countries in 5 years.
That's right. They told us then what they were planning to do, and they went out and did it. And what did the left do? We sat around and look, I've told people before, I am a communist socialist. I believe in economic redistribution to meet the human rights needs of all the people in society. That is literally what socialism is.
That's right.
It is taking the resources.
Demonize it.
Right.
Capitalists demonize it.
Exactly. It's taking all of the countries that the U.S. has attacked have some level of either a strong social safety net or outright socialist policies where the government subsidizes or guarantees and completely pays for housing, healthcare, education, and ensures a clean environment and leisure time for their citizens. Government pays for it. That is what this government does not want us to know is possible. That's and right. Is being done in other places that this government says are backwards, godless hellholes.
Let me just say this real quick. I know you got to call. Let me say this to add what she just said. Spot on. And that's why when they said, oh, look what socialism happened, we caused that by sanctioning them like we're doing in Cuba right now. We're starving them in the name of humanity. That's what I just said. Because of the fact we want to take over that country. So we're blocking them from getting oil. We're blocking them from getting food in the name of humanity because of the fact. So when we talk about these social countries going down, we caused that.
Wow. And bombing people to free them. Harold from Santa Barbara is back, I believe online. I'm not sure. Harold, go ahead. We're running out of time quickly, so go ahead. A comment or question?
Yes, you two are on fire, and I want to pour oil on you. And my question is, what do you think of Governor Newsom running for president? My personal comment is, if you're an NCO, remind me of my oldest brother.
All right, let him answer the question because we're really running out of time quickly. Governor Newsom running for president is the question. What do you think about that? They're like, whatever.
It doesn't matter who runs for president.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who runs for president. It doesn't matter who runs for president, just because, like Dennis said, we are occupied by both of these political parties, and neither one of these political parties have the interests of the citizens, the people, the residents of this country at heart. They govern for the capitalists. They are paid by the capitalists. You do with that what you want. You vote for who you want, but nothing is going to change regardless of who you vote for.
Newsom knows how to play the game well. I'll leave it at that. He knows how to play the game.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to wrap up. I have to say that I'm positive that we're going to win this. I think there's something project called Project 2028 coming out to give us the how we're going to win, because I played a little clip of that. But wrap up comments. Who wants to go first? Let's let the ladies go first since it's
well, I will just say quickly, please go to blackallianceforpeace.com to get all of the information we have. We are anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist. We're an organization of young organizers, reviving the Black radical peace tradition. Please sign on to our campaign to boycott the World Cup and the Olympics, to move the World Cup out of the United States. Don't come here. You're not safe. So blackallianceforpeace.com. Thank you so much.
Dennis, you have like 30 seconds.
Okay, real quick. No, I just want to say thanks for having me. Listen, Main Street media, liars. It's people like you, Sylvester, and others. We have to get the message out. And oh, by the way, boycotting with all the money that we have works. Target, if you will, they have not recovered yet.
And that was Dennis Fritz and Jackie Lukeman. My name is Sylvester Rivers, a.k.a. Sly Rivers. This is Cut to the Chase. Thank y'all for enlightening me and our audience. And we're going to win this. I have a thing. These empires are going down. I guess I have to shut up. See you next week.
I'm Esty Chandler from Middle East in Focus. Author Phyllis Bennis will be discussing her most recent